Hi everyone, my name is Alicia. Let's take a glimpse into how it's like to be in Tsinghua, and this is for those who are interested in China, studying in China, living in China, in different cultures and educational systems, or just simply curious about what's going on in the world. Today, we have Suzie Zhang, a Singaporean student doing a dual master's degree program in Masters in Development Economics and International Development at John Hopkins School of Advanced International Studies and International Politics in Tsinghua. She is also a scholarship recipient. She also holds a Bachelor of Arts in Public Policy and Global Affairs, second major in History at the School of Social Sciences at Nanyang Technological University in Singapore. She also exchanged to France and Peking University during her undergraduate days. She volunteered in Vietnam, Singapore, Indonesia, France, China, and she also worked with several departments in Singapore government, as well as a few think tanks. And in this podcast, she shared her affinity with volunteering and public policy and her views on studying in China and her insights on Belt and Road Initiative during her research trip to Southeast Asia and Nanyang with her classmates, as well as her passion in yoga. This really made me learn so much about policymaking, to know that it's not just about theory. You need people who are curious and have the desire to dig deeper, to ask why, and to see problems from different perspectives. Without further ado, let us proceed to the podcast itself. Hi, Suzie. How are you today? Thanks for joining us here.
Hi, Alicia. Thank you for having me on this. It's such a great initiative.
Yeah, for sure. And for now, let's dive right into your life and your experience in Tsinghua and in public policy. So let's start from why public policy? Why did you choose public policy? Are there certain experiences when you were younger that inform your choice?
Yes, so I always had an interest in global affairs and history since my adolescence, and my experience growing up is plagued with a lot of cultural clashes, issues of national belonging and social divides. So when I was growing up, I witnessed a lot of firsthand, like the struggles of impoverished families and how class differences translate into inequality. And I'm very blessed to come from a family whereby my parents had high credentials, so we experienced upward mobility. But then on the other hand, our neighbors were left behind, and this just dawned upon me the importance of education as a social mobility tool. And every year I just saw how, like, my former playmates whose potential are no less than their peers from high income households become left further and further behind. So all these happenings struck me to think about how our highly stratified system compels everyone to play a game with predetermined winners. And in the wake of all this transnational migration that's happening right now, I have this firm belief in empowering all these rural and migrant communities through education so that they can actually take charge of their lives and then integrate into their new host societies.
Knowing your intentions and experience during your younger days, were there ever times when you felt lost and you felt that public policy or international affairs was not the route that you wanted? What happened then?
Yeah, so I think it requires me sometimes to go beyond my comfort zone, and this includes confronting a lot of discomforting topics. But that itself, in doing so, was actually very rewarding. So I always wonder about a lot of questions like, why are some countries rich, some are poor? Does foreign aid help or harm growth? I think it requires me to question a lot of my own assumptions about development and international politics as a whole, and looking at them through multiple perspectives. And eventually, I think as I embark on duty, like what it means to be deserving constituents of a society and what the greater good entails. And so this instigated me to want to set out the challenge to seek to create more impact in this world.
Yeah, and I think that last sentence that you just said, you know, what impact can I create in this world? That is one question that we should all ask ourselves. I think it's a really important question, and so great to see that it kept you going all these years, and now you are on this really amazing journey and exploring even more things. Now that you are doing this degree in Tsinghua, John Hopkins SAIS, I'm curious as to why you picked China and why Tsinghua.
So I did international summer school at Peking University during my undergraduate degree. Back then, I was studying in Nanyang Technological University in Singapore, and I had a lot of very good memories living and studying in China. And part of me had always wanted to return to China to relive those good memories and experience again. So the opportunity came when I applied to Johns Hopkins for graduate school, and they offered me a place in this dual master's degree program. As an overseas Chinese, attending Beida and Tsinghua is a very prestigious thing. So naturally for me, it was like, yeah, I have to do this. And I thought also that this is a great opportunity to gain dual perspectives on international relations and studying in the top leading institutions in the world. So for me, I think when I was studying in NTU and also other countries, I have always been exposed to the Western school of thought. So I feel that having a Chinese perspective to all these global issues will help me a lot in formulating my own thoughts and eventually helping me to further my career.
Yeah, definitely dual perspectives, because I understand that this is going to be in US and China. So are there any particular people or professors that you are looking forward to interact with in these two amazing institutions?
Yes, so I got the opportunity to learn from a lot of renowned Chinese professors when I was in Tsinghua, such as Professor Zhao Kejing, Zhang Chuanjie, Ke Tang, who talk about Chinese financial markets. And I think studying at Tsinghua has presented me with an alternative lens to re-examine the Western school of thought that I was exposed to during my formative years. So it's very refreshing to hear the Chinese perspective on different issues ranging from international relations to economics. And this helped me to eventually develop my own interests and expertise on a select foreign policy topic based on like the opportunities in class and readings and interacting with all these experts and tapping on their ideas on the key debates of the day.
During your time in Tsinghua, what was the most interesting course that you have attended?
Yes, so for our program, we are very privileged, customized simulated think tank course, which is a collaborative effort between Carnegie Tsinghua Center and Tsinghua Department of International Relations. So each session will feature a guest lecturer, ranging from international scholars visiting the Carnegie Tsinghua Center, as well as Chinese scholars and former senior policy makers. For example, Professor Tang Xiaoyang arranged for General Yao to come down to share about South China Sea and Chinese foreign policy making. And we also have a lot of closed door dialogues with Carnegie scholars such as Alexander Gabriev, Carnegie India director, Rudra Chandhuri, and also Andy Rothman. So we got to interact with a lot of world-class think tank leaders and former senior government officials to discuss current issues in international affairs and also learn about the work and objectives of international think tanks.
That's a really insightful course. It seems like it. I wanted to know if the think tank course that you went through was similar to a real life think tank, because I know you also worked in a few think tanks before. How similar are they?
So I thought the course was really great. It helped me to better understand what is an international think tank and how it influences the policy making process, like how international think tanks work to produce timely analyses and how they shape the policy making process in different countries and capital cities. So through this course, I managed to gain insight of the respective roles of scholars, academic fellows, and the staff working there, and understand how their roles contribute to policy making and research analysis.
What are some other aspects of the course that you enjoyed or is interesting that you can share your experience with us?
Yes, so we are really very fortunate to have the support of Tsinghua's Department of International Relations. So we went on 2 field trips. One is to Nanjing, which is the capital city of Zhenjiang province in China. And another one is to Southeast Asia during our winter break. We visited Nanjing in early October last year, and we toured several huge Chinese enterprises such as Suning, Huawei, China Telecom, which is 中国电信. And we witnessed firsthand how these Chinese firms made technological breakthroughs in commercial deployment of 5G, cloud computing, big data, and AI. So it was very insightful and interesting.
When you were having tours in Suning, Huawei, and China Telecom, what actually goes into the sharing?
Yeah, so we also had the opportunity to interact with the local staff who were working in all those Chinese firms, understand their day-to-day job. It was really very intriguing hearing their experience working there, of how all these firms went ahead to prepare for the new age of communication and revamp not only their products but also internal processes and operations.
Were you impressed?
Yes, certainly. I think China is a very technological advanced country. So the second research trip that we did was to Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia and Jakarta in Indonesia in January with 9 other cohort mates. We visited several Chinese state-owned enterprises and interacted with many academics and local government officials. We were granted this opportunity to conduct our own exploratory research and fieldwork. At the end of the day, we managed to attain a clearer perception of the dynamics and ramifications of China's ongoing engagements with Malaysia and Indonesia in the context of its Belt and Road Initiative.
And what did you do during the 10-day trip?
So when we were in Kuala Lumpur, we visited the Kuala Lumpur subway project as well as University Kebangsaan Malaysia, and we interacted with Malaysian government officials and faculty there, and all this helped us to gain a great deal of insight about the Belt and Road Initiative and its impacts on Sino-Malaysian relations. And then for Indonesia, we got to visit the Jakarta-Bandung High-Speed Railway Project, the Bank of China, China State Construction Engineering Corporation. And it was really interesting because we saw how all these companies incorporated intensive Bahasa Indonesian classes into their staff training curriculum so as to facilitate their business operations and long-term development in the country.
So interesting that both projects that you visited subway rail related. What is going on with subway in Malaysia?
Actually, that one is just a subway project in central KL.
Ah,
Yeah.
and for Indonesia, the railway project?
Yes, that is really very exciting because it is Indonesia's first and historically, I think it's Southeast Asia's first high-speed rail project, and it's supposed to
Wow.
connect the capital city Jakarta with Bandung. So Bandung is located in neighboring West Java province, and it spans across a distance of over 140 kilometers. So it's a project between the Indonesian government and the Chinese government, and it's slated for completion by 2021 for trial, and then operations by 2022.
Wow, that's so soon.
Yes.
So what is China's role in this project?
The China Railway Group Limited, CREC, has actually formed a joint venture with a consortium of Indonesia's state-owned enterprises to develop this first high-speed railway in the country. And as of now, the project has actually, unfortunately, ceased temporarily, resulting a delay in the targeted finishing of the construction and self-operations. But once the pandemic eases, then they will resume work.
Oh, okay. So instead of 2022, it will be
Yeah, it may be
slightly later.
later. Yeah.
I see. But still very exciting. First in Southeast Asia. So I remember reading from one of your reflections that you actually visited Malaysia and Indonesia quite a lot when you were younger. So what changed going there as a researcher now versus when you went there as tourists? On top of going for this field trip with your classmates who are from different countries, different continents, how did that feel?
Yes, it certainly feels very different. As a Singaporean, I have been to Malaysia and Indonesia many times while I was growing up, and all these travels actually left a very indelible mark in me and profoundly shaped my views of these two countries. As a researcher, it's certainly very different. Prior to the field trip, I had a lot of presumptions about both countries. And then I did a lot of related readings to supplement all this pre-notion, which eventually helped me to formulate a better grasp of our research question and identify like the existing gaps in the Belt and Road discourse, and also assess the feasibility of our fieldwork. As a Southeast Asian and the only Southeast Asian in my group, I felt like I was playing host to them, even though I'm not from Malaysia and Indonesia. But I think we share a lot of cultural similarities, such as cuisine, transport, cultural customs. So many of my classmates were very curious about the food and
The food.
yes, the food and the religion, cultural practices. Many of my peers were very curious and intrigued by the racial mix in both countries.
Yeah, because in Southeast Asia, most of the countries here are actually multiracial. Versus in China or other countries, there might
More
be
homogeneous.
less of the multiracial. Yes, yes. Okay.
Yes, I was very happy to explain the history and cultures to them.
I guess also they will get a better understanding of, Singaporean, the idea of Singaporean Chinese or Malaysian Chinese, because when I tell people, so I'm Malaysian, and when I tell people that I'm actually Malaysian Chinese, they get confused. They're like, "Oh, I thought you're just Malay," and I'm like, "That's another race," but yeah, it's a nationality versus
Yes.
ethnicity, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Mhm.
When I tell people that I'm
And
Singaporean
mhm.
Chinese, then they are like, "So you're Chinese?" Then I'm like, "Yes." Then they're, "Oh, so you're from
Mm.
China?" Then I'm like, "No, it's different." Yeah, like this is your
Yeah,
ethnic
we are
group
fourth
and your
generation or third
nationality. Yeah, so it's
generation.
different. Yeah.
Yeah, it's always interesting conversation to have when you're overseas as a Southeast Asian. What did they think about the food?
Oh, they were very intrigued by the different variety of food, and we tried like all the cuisine from Indian food to Chinese food, and I must say that they really like the nasi biryani, the roti prata,
Yum.
and the bak kut
Yum.
teh.
Bak kut teh, to those who are listening, it's just basically pork ribs with herbal soup. Yeah,
Very
it's
delicious.
yummy. It's a very Malaysian Singaporean dish that you can't find anywhere else. Okay, and that when was the field trip again?
Oh, it was in
What
late January.
I guess that was the part where everything changed.
Yes, certainly. After I completed my trip, I flew back home to Singapore for Chinese New Year with my family, and I had a scheduled flight to go back to Beijing in February. And
Mm.
then COVID-19 happened, so I
Mm.
actually never got to say goodbye to a lot of my peers who didn't went on this trip with me, and then subsequently we completed the entire semester online.
Yeah, how was that entire experience for you?
I would say that online learning is certainly not my cup of tea because it pales in comparison with the simulating and interactive classes that I attended back then in Tsinghua. And what made it worse was that we went through a 10 weeks lockdown in Singapore, but I was
Mm.
very fortunate to be able to interact with my peers from all over the world with the help of technology. So I participated in this coffee chat initiative started by one
Mm.
of my Singaporean friends studying in Tsinghua. He's called Wang Qizhi, and I got to interact with a lot of Chinese students who were also undergoing the lockdown better in China in early February to March period. And this helped to connect us virtually. And it was a very nice interaction that I genuinely look forward to every week.
Oh, that's so nice that you're saying that. I genuinely enjoyed the coffee chat as well. I also participated in it, and yeah, and you were also helping out a lot in terms of bringing your course mates into this whole community of coffee chat. So that was really an amazing experience, and you played a huge part in it as well. And what else did you do during the pandemic?
Through my internship at Carnegie Tsinghua Center, I also participated in this Young China Watchers Carnegie Tsinghua Center mentorship program. So we are all paired up with a mentor who works in China and is a professional working in diverse fields, spanning from finance to public affairs. And we met on an almost monthly basis to discuss a lot of different issues such as the rise of Chinese telecom giants all the way to the Belt and Road Initiative. And I must say that all this camaraderie helped me to fight through the hard times of the lack of social interaction.
Yeah. I'm glad you kept your timetable full with connections across the world that is also related to what you're doing. That's very inspiring to hear how you pulled through. Oh yeah, I remember seeing on Instagram that you became a certified yoga trainer recently. How is that?
Yes, I started my yoga journey back then in late 2017. And I started practicing a bit more regularly back then in 2019. Then when I came back to Singapore, I did yoga on a more regular basis as well during the lockdown via Zoom with my friends. So that was my way of trying to keep my weight in check, because due to my relatively sedentary lifestyle, being at home and just at my desk the entire day. Yeah, so after the lockdown in Singapore, I signed up for an in-person yoga teacher training course by Home Yoga. And I went through 20 days of very intense training, 200 hours vinyasa yoga teacher training.
Wow.
So the schedule was really hectic. We have training from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. every day. We have no break even during the weekends. Yeah.
Wow. Congratulations on your new certificate.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, I've always enjoyed yoga a lot. I feel that it's my safe sanctuary from a lot of things, and it helps to distract me to really focus on myself, my breathing, my mind, and my body when I'm on the mat. And I feel that I kind of found myself on the mat whenever I step onto the mat. Yeah, and moving on, I would love to share my practice with the wider community to help them to feel more empowered and grounded each time they step off the mat.
Yeah, we should definitely do it together sometime then, as I'm also quite passionate about doing yoga. It certainly achieves the type of peace that you were mentioning.
Yes, can't wait to
do it post-COVID. And yeah, and I saw that you also do a lot of volunteering even back in Tsinghua. Can you tell us more about that?
Yes. So I started volunteering since high school, whereby I went on a volunteering trip to Java, Indonesia. We were based in an elementary school on the outskirts of the city, and we were conducting classes for them, ranging from like cultural activities to English lessons. And then that sparked the interest in volunteering. So when I was studying in Tsinghua, I participated in this volunteering sting with the School of Social Science Student Union, and they organize trip every Thursday afternoon to the Wenhua Migrant Workers Elementary School. It's called Wenhua 打工子弟小学, and it's located in the outskirts of Beijing City.
How far is it each time?
By bus, we have to change, I think, twice. From school to that's around like 45 minutes one way.
Well, that's pretty far.
It is. But it's
Actually.
still in Haidian district.
Oh, wow, Haidian is huge. Haidian is bigger than Singapore. I
Yes.
mean.
Yes.
And did you do it with your classmates as
No,
well?
I was actually the only Singaporean and international student there.
Oh, wow. So the rest of the volunteers are all local Chinese students.
Yes. Yes. So that was actually one of the main reasons as well why I did it. Because I feel that I wanted to gain more exposure and opportunity to interact with Chinese students, because my course is entirely in English and most of my peers are international students. So what greater way to immerse myself in the environment than to step up to join an activity comprising mainly Chinese students. So it was a very rewarding experience.
Did you feel like you stepped out of your comfort zone by being the only international student?
Yes, certainly. So I find this experience really worthwhile and meaningful because I feel that we were contributing to the problems of education inequalities faced by migrant students in China. And then at the same time, we are helping to improve their self-confidence to gain knowledge. And overall, I think it's a really rewarding experience because I can improve my Chinese speaking skills. I learn a lot of new Chinese words every time I interact with them. And also build relations with my fellow Chinese schoolmates.
It's all about learning the culture by just interacting with the culture. Are there any sort of opportunities in your career right now that came through when you were volunteering?
Well, I would say that there were no direct relation to a career development, but I really appreciate being able to be connected to the ground because I feel that at my previous role, I was sort of sitting in that ivory tower, crafting public policies at work.
I like that description.
Thank you. Yeah, so I think it's very difficult to find words to describe how impactful all these experiences have helped to impact my personal development. In many aspects, it has helped me to become more self-empowered in my personal life. And I think the most gratifying thing is that you are acting for other people rather than for yourself. And perhaps the greatest success is to empower others to become successful as well.
A bit of a servant leadership aspect to
Yes,
this.
I think it's all about contributing back into the community, which I had benefited a lot from when growing up.
And that leads to my next question, what are the linkages from your point of view between your work in volunteering and your course, public policy?
Yeah, so all my volunteer experiences were different. I volunteered in Vietnam, Indonesia, Singapore, France, and China, and they are in different geographical locations, but there was one common theme that stand out, which is that we can maximize our impact when we are all truly connected. I firmly believe that one person itself cannot attain very large scale results, but by working together, collaborating with multi stakeholders in public policy making or any other projects whereby we can bring our own experience and expertise to the table, this can ultimately create a domino effect and then eventually produce life-changing solutions at work.
And it also seems like, through volunteering, you are also connected to the source of problems you're trying to solve, or like the type of social impact that you're seeking to bring.
Yeah, certainly.
That is, again, inspiring, and hopefully people who are listening to this can also be inspired to start volunteering as well, because we need more people volunteering like yourself. And yeah, it seems like you've been doing that all your life. In every country you go, you volunteer. How do you usually find those volunteering experience?
Yeah, so I always do it with my school, which is the tertiary institution that I study at. And I think that's the best way to connect with not only the people that you're helping with, but also your fellow students.
Right. So thank you so much for sharing your experience in Tsinghua as well as in your life. So what's next for you, Suzie?
Yeah, so Actually, right now, I should be in Washington, D.C. because I will be at the second leg of my dual master's degree program. But unfortunately, due to the pandemic, I am taking classes remotely for the next semester at Johns Hopkins SAIS. I will be doing some classes in economics and international development. And then I think being in Singapore has its perks as well. I am trying to see the silver lining amidst this ongoing pestilence. And being based in Singapore gives me opportunity to volunteer with this organization called Business China Youth Chapter. So I'm able to participate in a lot of webinars that they conduct and then contribute by writing English and Chinese articles. I feel that this is a true test of my bilingual skills because it requires fluency in both Chinese and English language at a more academic writing and formal level. So I feel that being able to learn and practice this skill will help me eventually in the long run after I graduate from this program.
Yeah, definitely sounds like a side project that fits right into what you're doing now. And what are some of your future career plans for the next few years?
So after graduating from this program, I hope to work in the field of development in an international organization or a political and country risk consulting firm. Currently, I'm working on enhancing my research skills, critical thinking skills, and developing a method of keeping up with the current policy trends.
What are some credible sources for like China related news for those who are listening who are also interested?
Yeah, so for keeping up to date with the latest developments in China from English language sources, besides the South China Morning Post, I also highly recommend signing up to the free daily or weekly email newsletters of Caixin Global, which is business related news, the China US Focus, which is international relations commentary by high level academic fellows or policymakers, Chin AI, which is, as the name suggests, AI related news, SubChina, and for those interested, you can actually become a SubChina campus ambassador. Sinosism, which is a great news summary. Last but not least, you can also participate in the Carnegie Tsinghua Center for Global Policy internship for the academic year. The applications just opened recently, and I had the great fortune of interning there for the entire academic year under the communications team, whereby I was helping out with partnership and government relations. And last but not least, Young China Watchers. So this is a dynamic group of China focused young professionals, and they organize a lot of regular roundtables and talks with senior figures in the Chinese academia, policy, and business communities. So I attended a lot of their talks before, and they provided me a chance to interact and discuss the most pressing issues emerging from China today with like-minded China thought leaders. And they actually have a lot of chapters situated worldwide, from Shanghai to New York to Singapore and Washington, D.C., with more than 5,000 members around the world.
That's awesome. I'm glad you had a great experience there as well. And thanks for the different sources that you provided. I'll put that in the podcast description for everyone else's reference. And are there any other things that you'd like to add to this podcast before we end?
Perhaps I can add one more point about self-acceptance and self-love. I think 2020 has proved formative in terms of that the pandemic and the lockdown has actually compelled me to engage in a lot of deeper thoughts and self-reflection about my sense of individuality and cultural touchstones. So this is what I always preach while teaching yoga as well, that yoga is a journey, it's yoga practice and not yoga perfect. So if you can't go into a posture or you find it challenging, then it's alright. Just let it go. Yoga will find you wherever you are in your life story today. So we should always be grateful for having a healthy body and healthy mind. Embrace our limits and strengths. Acknowledge and being aware of what our body can and cannot do. And likewise, I think in life we often beat ourselves up over the smallest mistakes that we make from time to time. And we just can't help but compare ourselves with other people. So I hope that next time when you find yourselves trying to behave or act in a certain manner so as to conform to the societal standard prevalent or popular social norm, then just take a step back and rethink about it. After all, we all run our own race and we should just march to the beat of our own drum in life. So here's to wholehearted living, unraveling greater and deeper depths of homecoming to ourselves.
Alrighty, on that note, I am so glad to have had this time with you. Thank you for sharing your reflections, thoughts, and your experience. I found them really inspiring, seeing how you can easily make the links between everything you do to answer your greater purpose, which is to make that impact and to step your foot in development. I think that your passion for discovery is incredible, and you're a great example of a person who is in alignment of who you are as a person with your thoughts and ideas as you actively search and do things that makes you more you. And you're even doing things intuitively, to serve the people. And that speaks volume of your good nature. We definitely need more people like this who realize the need to work together to achieve large-scale results. I hope this podcast will serve all of us as a reminder for us to continue searching what we are passionate in and our purpose in life. Perhaps we can start by creating experience and opportunities that allow us to be in contact with the source of the problems that we are trying to solve.